Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenhoff coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us. The number is the same if you call or text at 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Coming up on the show today, Dan Shafer will be here from the recombobulation area at 10:33. He's got a new recombobulation area article out about 10 takeaways from the election. So we will break that down with Dan Shafer and continue asking, where is the great Hovdini? No one's seen him. Eric Hovde. Guess he's back in California. Dr. Kristin Lyerly will be here at 11:06. Really looking forward to talking to her. I thought she ran a great campaign. She came up short in the end, but we'll talk to her about what she learned, if she will run again.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that she might. And also, the Wisconsin Supreme Court was hearing arguments about that 1849 abortion ban yesterday, and we will be talking about that with her as well. And then, of course, we'll wrap it up with This Shouldn't Be a Thing at 11:51. Today, it's the I didn't see that coming. And that's courtesy of Andrew in Maine, so thank you so much for sending that one in. Andrew, you can always do the same. If you have a thing that you think should not be, send it into Greg and me at janesays@civicmedia.us. JANESAYS, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Also, just a reminder, if you would like to be a supporter of Civic Media, one way you can do that, in addition to listening and spreading the word that we exist, you can get some merch.
What?
Yes, you can get shirts, you can get T-shirts, you can get hats. Go to civicmedia.us and pick up a new hat.
A new hat or a T-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. Spiff up the wardrobe a little bit with some Civic Media merch.
Yeah.
That would be greatly appreciated. Wanted to start off talking about school referendums. There were many of them last Tuesday. From WPR, voters approved tax increases for many Wisconsin school districts. This from Corrine Hess. Preliminary results show many Wisconsin school districts successfully made the case to voters that their schools need money. Voters in 120 different school districts were asked to approve 137 referendum questions. An early analysis found about 107 of those did pass, 30 failed.
It's very interesting for a variety of reasons, in my opinion, because one, like when people talk about the quote unquote failing school systems, but then they still go out and vote to give them school money, which is great. They need the money.
We need public schools.
We need public schools. They are important. They need to be held to a higher standard, and they need more money to give the teachers and students what they need. But there's one piece of information that's kind of sitting there in mass, and it's like, I don't know, it's like 3.8 to 4 billion ideas called a surplus we could be giving to these schools, but it's not being used.
It's not a priority.
It's
really not a priority.
No.
State School Superintendent Jill Underly says she believes voters realize the value of public education and understand that schools need sustainable funding. Quote, our state legislature has severely underfunded public schools for well over a decade. That's true. And it's led to a record number of districts going to referendum to try and fix these severe financial constraints on their own. So, yeah, if the legislature had been keeping up with funding our public schools ever since Scott Walker got elected, we might not see so many districts having to go to referendum.
Well, I mean, like right now, there's the GOP, the Madison loves nothing more than to not give our kids give our kids the money they need, give their schools the money they need. Was it $50 million the Joint Finance Committee is sitting on right now for the new program that they had to
for the mandatory literacy program.
The literacy program they had to institute this year, had to pay for this year, but the money to fund it is still sitting in Madison because the Joint Finance Committee will not release the funding.
Right.
It's not being voted on. It's done.
It's done. It was approved.
There's a bank account with a bunch of money in it, but they're just sitting there doing nothing. Meanwhile, schools have to make do and pay for these programs out of their own pocket through their budget. And when they have to adjust their budgets, that means other things don't get funded. Maybe people get let go. It's not a sustainable way of doing things.
Not to keep doing referendums year after year after year.
No.
Because at some point, taxpayers are going to say, we're fed up.
Yeah.
I can't see my property taxes go up anymore to help fund schools, which is Again, I get that, but we also need to keep in mind that we are essentially funding two separate school systems.
Yes, we are. Jane, tell them more.
Well, it's called the voucher plan.
But I thought the voucher plan was perfect, Jane. And all you do is you tell a private school, hey, I'd like my kid to go there, but I can't afford it. And the private school is like, yeah, don't worry about it. We get you a voucher.
Yeah, not so much.
How do they pay for that voucher, Jane?
They take taxpayer money, Greg Bach.
But what?
So we are essentially funding two separate school systems.
Yes, we are.
Public schools and then the voucher schools. And the voucher schools have far less oversight
Yes.
than public schools do.
Let's talk about that for a moment. If you're talking about private schools, some of them have, I don't want to say standards because I want to hold children to that term. They have rules. They have guidebooks. And if you don't fit in their world, they have every right, because they are not a public school, to throw you out.
Or to refuse you.
Yeah, whether it is a trans kid, a gay kid, someone who they maybe just don't want there.
Someone with a physical disability.
They can find a reason, and they don't have to justify to anyone. But here's the thing, is they can apply for that voucher program. They can get that voucher money, accept that young kid who doesn't fit their milieu, and then throw them out without explanation. Well, they'll say they didn't fit in. They'll give it a very basic idea. And then guess what, folks? They get to keep your money.
Oh, that's how that works.
That's how that works. If you want to know, folks, if you're listening right now and this is new to you, welcome aboard. It's a terrible train to ride. But in the show notes today, the Wisconsin Action Network has put together Wisconsin Public Education Network, my apologies, has put together a website where you can go to your county or metropolitan area school district. You can look up how much money from the budget of that school district is being diverted to voucher programs. And it is lots.
It's a substantial amount of money.
A lot of money. Look at your metropolitan Madison area, your Milwaukee area. We're seen as a lot of money. That is money coming out of your taxes, your tax dollars, and going to voucher programs. That is money that your children won't get because
if they go to public schools.
Exactly. So that is, I think you said it too, and it blew my mind because I've never heard anyone say before like that, which is we are funding two separate school systems.
Essentially.
And one of them is far more expensive than the other one.
And this is my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, but people who had already enrolled their kids in private schools get to take advantage of these vouchers too, correct?
That I'm not sure of, but I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
I don't know how you could deny them.
No, and I'm sure if you go to that school and say, I'd love to send my kid here, but I can't afford it, they're going to say, don't worry about it. We got you covered. We have a voucher program. Well, that's money that's coming out of a public school and coming out of the pocket of their budget and being taken away from children who need a good public school education.
In Madison, Superintendent Joe Goddard said, we are excited that 10 of our schools will be transformed with the yes vote for district facilities. But he continues that, and our revenues are not keeping up with our costs. We, along with other public school districts throughout the state, continue to be grossly underfunded. Our team will come together and engage with the community to determine how to move forward. So other districts that did pass referendums included Green Bay, Wauwatosa, West Allis, Cudahy, Franklin, Glendale, River Hills, Eau Claire, and Superior.
And earlier this year, Milwaukee passed a massive $272 million referendum in spring. Was it spring or was it the?
I think it was in spring.
It was spring. I wasn't sure if
so.
it was the primary, but yeah, they passed a huge referendum in Milwaukee. And I don't want to say it's going poorly, but things in MPS are not going to snuff at this point. So it just comes down to the fact that we need great public schools, and it is not impossible. It's harder to do that when they're stealing money away from these public schools and giving them private schools who, I'm sorry, if you can't afford their tuition, you might not be able to go. I mean, there's scholarships, there's academics, sports scholarships, that's great. But I don't know. I just think that, and I say as someone who went to private school, I went to Catholic school from grade 1 to grade 12. So I get it. But I also went back in the day when it didn't cost as much as to go to college.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, nowadays, I think the high school that I went to, Catholic Memorial, is more expensive than some UW schools. It's very expensive to go.
Wow.
Yeah. We're talking about that kind of money, folks, coming out of your school's budget.
855-752-4842 if you'd like to join the conversation as we talk about school referenda that just passed last week in a number of school districts around the state. This might become a moot thing.
Yeah.
Because the president-elect has said he's going to abolish the Department of Education.
Yeah, because, that helps. That'll help. What's your plan then? Everyone just goes,
I don't know.
Everyone goes to private school for free. I mean,
for some reason, I think that's not part of the plan.
Children in certain economic situations, you get to work in the mines. And that's honestly, we've talked about that before too, is that this constant chipping away at public education, giving children the ability to, learn and do better and go to college, are going to be forced to quit school and work and do exactly what some of these politicians want, is to have them as good little laborers.
Definitely. Cindy from Appleton, we are going to break. If you can hang on, we will start back with you when we return. Stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
She is mad and she starts to cry. She takes a swing, man. She can't help. She don't mean no harm. She just don't know what else to do about it. Jane said,
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Calvinator on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine. You can join us. You can call. You can text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. And you can call and text directly from the Civic Media app.
What?
So I know. So if you don't have it yet, go to wherever you get your apps and download the Civic Media app. They just updated it.
Yeah, they did. It's now only $1.2 million per download.
It's completely free.
Why do we do this?
And it gives you the opportunity to listen to all of the shows all across the state, no matter where you are. So it's pretty handy, and it's free. So download the Civic Media app wherever you get your apps. Before we went to break, we were talking about the number of school referendums that passed last Tuesday as our schools continue, public schools anyway, continue to struggle. Cindy from Appleton is on the line. Good morning, Cindy. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Well, I think we're just going to get to the point of no return soon with trying to, keep our public schools going through communities. It's just going to get to the point where people just can't do it anymore. And, if the Felons Administration actually does deport as many people as they're threatening to deport, someone's going to have to take those jobs. And since they're still going to want cheap labor, why not put children in those positions?
Yep.
That's a really terrifying prospect, Cindy.
Yeah.
But I honestly think that's what they want, really.
No, I think Cindy, you're correct. I think their goal is to put children back to work, women in the kitchen.
Well, we've seen, good heavens, they did. Sarah Huckabee Sanders. They've been altering child labor laws over the last couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I guess I can see where that might be the goal.
Yeah.
I don't know how many folks are going to feel good about that.
I just, I wonder when's the point where they're going to start telling congresswomen and senators,
you need to retire.
You need to retire because these jobs need to be done by men. If your grandmas, just take care of your grandkids. And yeah, this is them forcing us into what they thought America was in the 50s.
The good old days.
The good old days.
The good old days. Thank you, Cindy. Really appreciate you checking in. And as always, thank you for listening very much. You can join us as well at 855-752-4842, 855-75-CIVIC. We wanted to do this briefly before we go to the bottom of the hour news. The president-elect is putting together potential cabinet members. I'm seeing that now this is not a lock.
Mm-hmm.
But Marco Rubio is being considered for Secretary of State. Now, I'm seeing some differing reports coming in this morning. Now, let's not forget that Donald Trump called him, what, Little Marco?
Yeah.
Little Lion Marco or something?
Yeah, he's not really original.
But I'm seeing from some on Twitter that they don't feel that this is a bad pick.
Well, I guess Marco Rubio went really hard on China.
Right.
And his whole thing with TikTok, and I asked this to Todd this morning about this matter of this. They're tough on China. The last time I checked, Donald Trump worships Xi Jinping, calls him a brilliant man.
He's a genius.
Rules 1.4 billion people with an iron fist, which
he likes.
An authoritarian. So how are we going to both praise the leader yet denigrate the country and put tariffs on them, ban their apps because TikTok went away. Like TikTok, as far as like the controversy went away. But I think in 2025 you're going to see a resurrection.
It's going to come back.
So like my question is this tough on China thing, how is this going to work for us as a country? How does this benefit us when you got our leader sucking up to their leader while undermining all of their industry and undermining their technology? It just does not make sense to me whatsoever.
Well, I guess that's why diplomacy would be necessary. Call me crazy.
Nah,
we don't need to do that. The other one that really just jumped out at me is South Dakota Governor Kristin Lyerly.
Why do I remember that name,
South
Jane?
Dakota Republican who boasted of shooting her pet dog, Cricket, to death, shooting it in the head in a gravel pit because the dog was uncontrollable.
It was just beyond a puppy.
It was 4 months old.
Was it 4 months old?
That's what I saw this morning.
It was a puppy.
It was a puppy.
And she didn't know how to train it. So she punished it and put it in a book. And boy, did that keep her from becoming vice president.
Some of the things on social media about this pick Trump wants the dog shooter to be his Secretary of Homeland Security because that's what she's being tapped for. And she put this in her book.
Yep.
She put this in her book. So she is going to be in charge of Homeland Security. I guess her ability to stand next to Donald Trump while he swayed to music
For 39 minutes.
for 39 minutes at one of his rallies just a couple of weeks before the election, that must have drawn them closer.
Yes. Who's going to take her place as the governor of South Dakota?
Well, and he's pulling a lot of folks from the House too.
Yes. Yes, he is.
And I think Mike Johnson's getting a little bit nervous about that because they've got to, and it looks like the Republicans are going to take the House, so they're going to have a trifecta going in.
Grand. I would say a quadfecta. They got the Supreme Court too.
There's that too. Yeah, I don't know.
These are just some of the names. I mean,
Ben Carson came up again.
awesome.
Granted, the man is a surgeon. I'll give him that.
So he's going to be the Surgeon General.
No, I think it came up for Health and Human Services.
Oh, that's right. Some job he's never done before.
Well, I guess I'd rather have Ben over RFK Jr.
Oh, that's right. Well, he can make RFK Jr. the Surgeon General. Anything to make America healthy again, Jane.
Right.
Do those push-ups, decapitate those whales.
As one does.
Yes.
Again, these are being floated. Obviously there's been no confirmation process. Donald Trump kind of wants to go around the whole confirmation process.
Yes, he is going to do that. He is, and the Senate's on board.
Yeah.
If they
they're going to capitulate and do whatever he wants. I think that was pretty much a given.
Yeah, but if you notice, a lot of these people who are being picked, sycophants, not so much experts in their fields.
Well, and the one thing about Ben Carson, he has to be the slowest talking
Yes.
human
He's Sleepy Ben.
in the world. News is next. When we come back, Dan Shafer will be here for a little recombobulating. I hope you'll stay with us. You're listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
Choosing lover. Oh, you're so choosing. Girl, I'm so proud of you. I'm so glad you chose me, baby. I'll make you so happy. Choosing lover.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Board Lord coming to you from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine, Wisconsin. You can always join us. You can call, you can text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Next hour at this time, do you remember Bodie McBoatface?
Yes.
From a couple of years ago? Well, we have a Wisconsin version of Bodie McBoatface, and we will have an update for you next hour around 11:33. It should make you laugh.
It made us laugh so hard.
So hard.
It was what we needed. I have not seen Jane laugh this hard in a while.
It felt really, really good.
Yeah.
So that's coming up next hour. And then, of course, we will wrap up the show with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. Today, it's the I Didn't See That Coming edition. So stick around for that as well. Right now, though, very glad to be joined by our friend and colleague and Civic Media's political editor and the author of The Recombobulation Area, Dan Shafer, is here. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, Jane. Morning, Greg. I'm doing well. How are you guys doing?
We are excellent. Kind of wondering, where is the great Hovdini? No one has seen him. Where is the invisible Senate candidate from Wisconsin? He still hasn't conceded yet, has he?
He still has not conceded yet, and I'm actually writing something about this right now. It is bizarre. His last public comment was the morning after Election Day, the morning of November 6th. Last public comments were in the 9 o'clock hour, and that was 6 days ago. And it has been complete radio silence. It's not like anybody is seriously disputing these results. Tammy Baldwin has given a victory speech. Tammy Baldwin won by an identical margin to what Donald Trump defeated the Harris-Walz ticket by in Wisconsin. And no one is disputing that Donald Trump won Wisconsin at all. And yet it has been complete radio silence from Hovde. And you know what? Chaos loves you. And because Hovde has not conceded in this race, we are starting to see the same types of nonsensical conspiracy theories being spread by your pal Jabba the Musk and the rest of the far right election denier fringe on the platform formerly known as Twitter. So there are now posts in the multi-million views of accusing Wisconsin of stealing the Senate race by this vote dump. I love the logic of this, saying that they conducted some sort of fraud to steal the Senate race, but not the presidential race, or or any of this nonsense, right?
Or any of the state legislative races or the assembly races. Right. No, so the cheaters let them get all those wins, but it was just this one. Just this one. I'm seeing the same thing about Kerry Lake in Arizona now.
Right. Right.
The same kind of, oh, yes, they stole this seat from her, but not all the other ones.
No. And she just got done. She finally just got done with 2022. Now she gets another few years out of this race saying it was stolen. This is, what? At what point, though? At what point do we just let them spin out and be like, all right, yeah, sure, if you think so? Because there's no convincing them. There's no evidence. There's better things to do with our time. And it just doesn't make sense to even fight them at a certain point.
But I think I think there is a reason to fight them, because they keep convincing other people that there is widespread voter fraud. Mike Johnson was outside the chambers this morning talking to reporters and saying how great the results of the 2024 election were and there was no cheating. So I'm thinking, well, what about you inherently knowing that millions of illegal immigrants vote in every election? What happened to that?
Yeah, it just goes to show how nonsensical these claims of election fraud are, and it's like the confirmation bias of it all, like what you were saying with the Mike Johnson press conference. It's just like, since our guy won, then there's no fraud. But when we don't win, then it's fraud. The only way we could ever lose elections is if it's fraud. No, it's sometimes just people disagree. In this case, Tammy Baldwin won by 0.86%. in Wisconsin, and Donald Trump won by 0.86% in Wisconsin. She did slightly better than the rest of the ticket. That was the expectation all along. I think most people, observers of Wisconsin politics, were convinced that Tammy Baldwin would run a point or two ahead of the top of the ticket, whoever was the presidential race, even back when it was Biden. And sure enough, that appeared to be the case. And that appeared to be the difference in the state of Wisconsin because we have such close elections here. And looking back to 2 years ago, we had another very close race in the U.S. Senate where Ron Johnson defeated Mandela Barnes by a margin of about 27,000 votes. Mandela Barnes gave a concession speech in Milwaukee the day after that election. Tammy Baldwin defeated Eric Hovde by a margin of about 29,000 votes. These are very similar results. Yes, there is the difference of the third-party candidates who ran in this year's election. I think collectively between the two of them, amounted to somewhere around like 65 or 70,000 votes. But those votes aren't changing either. And I think it's also overstating things to suggest that all of those votes would have automatically gone to Hovde. There's probably many people who were voting that election who may not have voted at all in that race otherwise. So it's also wrong to suggest, that exactly how third-party voters are going to break if it was just the two candidates, the Republican and Democrat, on the ballot. And nevertheless, those people who voted in those races, they voted for those candidates. Those aren't changing. So I think I think Eric Hovde needs to step forward now and accept the results of this election, put to rest this nonsense that is being batted around on social media about the vote dump, about conspiracies about these elections. It's time to put this to rest. It's been a week since Election Day. It's over. Move on. We're all moving on too.
I moved on a while ago. The moment they said Tammy Baldwin won, I'm like, goodbye, Eric. I don't even care if he gives a concession speech because he's just showing that he's part of that unprofessional, childlike contingent of, I didn't get my way, so I'm just going to go away.
I'm just going to go home.
And the question I have too is he honestly, is he with his people right now saying, is it worth coming out saying we want a recount? And
well, he's going to have to pay for it.
Exactly. Well,
right.
He can afford it.
Yeah, he can afford it, but I mean, it's pretty much throwing money down the toilet.
But not just a recount, but also claiming that there's voter fraud. Like is he weighing those options before he says anything else?
And I think another reason for this, Wisconsin has gone through so much over the past 4 years with this type of election denial nonsense, the Gableman affair from the 2021 and 2022. So many of these candidates who have pushed these types of ridiculous conspiracy theories on the Republican side over the past 4 years. It's enough. It's enough of this at this point. And I think, if Eric Hovde wants to have any kind of a future in Wisconsin politics, he needs to come forward and concede, and he needs to do it sooner than later. It's long past time. He should have done this on Wednesday or even Thursday. Look, I mean, given the extra day, there's a lot of votes in a presidential election. We didn't get that results reported from Milwaukee until very, very late on election night. But they were not decisive for him. And Milwaukee wasn't even the last place to report its results. There were results from Oshkosh. There were results from Oak Creek that didn't report until later on too. It was not just Milwaukee either, as much as they always want to make this a Milwaukee problem.
I was going to say, then we better get some investigations into those communities, Dan, and find out what happened with those vote dumps.
I heard father version of Dan come out that this is enough. This is enough. Eric,
that
Eric,
was.
You get on the podium and say you're sorry for not doing this sooner. This is enough.
I slipped into dad voice there, didn't I?
Just for a little bit. Just for a little bit. That's good. That's good. They gave us a little taste of your dad mode. Well, we will keep our eyes out to see if Hovdini shows up, and we'll definitely
still not there.
Let you know if anybody spots him or if anybody.
It's gonna be like Bigfoot.
It's Where's Waldo now. With Eric Hovde. Although I think California's a pretty safe bet.
Yeah.
Bill from Economowoc is on the line. We're going to take you real quickly, Bill. Good morning, sir. How you doing?
Good morning, and thanks for your open forum. I love it. Dan O'Donnell will not let me talk. He's afraid of me. He's terrified of me. But anyhow, thanks, guys. On the election, let's regroup. let's wait for the first shoe to fall, and it's almost falling now. There's a lot of stuff on the internet chatter about how Putin is telling Trump, well, now I'm in charge, Donald, and you're not. They had something posted on Russian TV of Putin walking Donald Trump like a dog.
Yeah, they had. I saw some other stuff on Russian TV that was not terribly flattering to the future and former First Lady on Russian television. They were pretty happily sharing her nude photos, but that's another discussion, I think. And that's something we're going to have to keep our eyes on too. The global order.
Yep.
And other leaders in the world.
Yeah.
Dan Shafer is here. He is the political editor for Civic Media, and he is also the author of the Recombobulation Area, multi-award-winning Recombobulation Area. You whipped up a new column, Dan, that you posted late on Friday to talk about some of the takeaways from Tuesday's election, last week's election.
Yeah. I think there's a lot we can learn from these results, and I think the first point that I made in this piece was that Wisconsin nearly defied this red wave election. Of the 7 swing states, Wisconsin was the closest, and it is actually the first time Wisconsin has voted to the left of both Michigan and Pennsylvania since 1988.
Interesting.
It has been typical of Wisconsin to be slightly to the right of both of those states. It's been the case as things have really focused on these blue wall states in the last few presidential elections. But Wisconsin has actually voted to the left of Pennsylvania and to the left of Michigan. And once again, Wisconsin's presidential election margin was less than 1%. So now 5 of the last presidential elections in the state of Wisconsin have been decided by a less than 1% margin. The other 2 being the ones with Barack Obama on the ballot and delivering a very clear victory. So we just have extraordinarily close elections in the state of Wisconsin.
And didn't voter turnout go up too, Dan?
Turnout went up. Harris actually won more votes in Wisconsin in 2024 than Biden received in the state in 2020. So I think that lends credence to what a lot of people were feeling on the ground, was that this rise in enthusiasm, this rise in energy around the Harris-Walz campaign, it just ultimately, just very, very close election was not enough.
Just wasn't enough.
But I believe that even nationwide, Donald Trump did not get as many votes this time that he did in 2020 when he lost, too. Like, it's just, the numbers are interesting. I mean, you were talking about numbers amongst white people over the age of 65.
Yes.
Coming out for, I mean, it's just, and Dan will get more into the takeaways as well. Just the numbers are fascinating to look at from just a standpoint of like elections.
Oh, absolutely. And when you really start breaking it down, which is what Dan Shafer does.
Exactly.
He delves into all that stuff and breaks it down. We're going to put a link to the Recombobulation Area with your article in our show notes. You can always find our show notes at civicmedia.us. Just click on all shows, go to Matenaer On Air, and then that will take you to the entire archive. We're going to continue talking about Tuesday's results. Dan Shafer is here. Stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air. This is the Civic Media Radio Network.
How can I be leaving Milwaukee? Saw a sign said, "Welcome to Cleveland." Hoping for a relaxing weekend. Once I get strapped in the 210, wheels up and we'll be rocking, getting out of frozen Wisconsin. I need you to recombobulate me. I want you to recombobulate me. I need you to recombobulate me. Won't somebody recombobulate me? You have for takeaway. You have for takeaway.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Caliente on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text the same number, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Dan Shafer is our guest. He is the political editor here at Civic Media, also the author of the award-winning The Recombobulation Area, talking about the results of last Tuesday's election and one of your most recent columns about 10 takeaways from the 2024 election. Dan, just one question from a listener who texted in, Troy from Mount Horeb. We were talking about the great Hovdini, Eric Hovde. Where is he? Troy wants to know, what's the deadline for him to ask for a recount? Do you know that?
I'm actually not sure. So I'll have to look that one up.
Yeah, but I mean, there
a
at
good
some
question,
point there will
but
be
yeah.
a deadline. At some point, there's a deadline, and he's going to cross it, or either do something before that time. We will double check on that, Troy. And get back
I
to
have
you
been
on that.
combing through the Wisconsin Elections Commission's recount rules as I try to figure out what exactly that is. So stay tuned. I'll have a column or something online with that. Yeah.
Soon. All right. Another one of the big takeaways, according to your article, was how southwestern Wisconsin really went big for Donald Trump.
Yeah, I think, part of this breakdown was taking a look at what happened by region of the state. And I think there was a lot of focus on, the WOW counties. I wrote a big piece about the Fox Valley and Green Bay. But I think one of the stories that has really emerged in the early going here from taking a look at the shift from 2020, not that I think some of this we can look on a longer scale, but the shift from 2020 was most pronounced in southwestern Wisconsin. Only a few Wisconsin counties moved in the blue direction this year, but the most pronounced shifts came from that cluster in the southwest. So Lafayette County, Iowa County, Crawford County, and Grant County all moved in a roughly 6-point shift from to Donald Trump in this election. Harris won a majority in Iowa County, but these were all counties that were won by Janet Protasewicz in the 2023 Wisconsin Supreme Court race. And I was just looking at Grant County in particular. Grant County is the one in the very corner of the state bordering Iowa. And that county voted for Barack Obama by double-digit margins in both 2008 and 2012. That shifted pretty dramatically in 2016 to a near 10-point margin for Trump, and now it's in about an 18-point margin for Trump in 2024. And I think it's becoming a real problem in this particular district. This was, in the congressional district where Derek Van Orden now represents. There were a lot of those Obama-Trump voters in 2016. And I think, there was maybe that trend slowed down a little bit in 2020, but now it has picked back up. And I think we're seeing that part of the state continue to accelerate its shift towards Republicans. And we're seeing it not only some of the more rural counties in the area. La Crosse County actually was among those that shifted the most towards Trump in this election as well. I think it was about a 4-point shift for La Crosse County. And if you drew, there were some parts of the city there that really moved pretty significantly in Trump's direction. And so I think this is a real problem for Democrats on the statewide calculus. If some of these Trump plus 10 to 15 counties become Trump plus 20 to 25 counties in the future, that could really make a difference in the margin statewide. So I think we really have to look at what's going on in southwestern Wisconsin, because it's pretty clear that voters in that region are just not buying what the Democrats are selling.
Well, but it's going to be interesting now going into the new administration and whether or not the farm bill, anything happens with the farm bill.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think that the tariffs that Donald Trump has talked about, which we know really impacted our farmers last time, could do the same, if not worse, to our farmers this time around. So we'll have to kind of wait and see what happens over the next 4 years.
Yep, absolutely. Another region of the state that shifted a lot from 2012 to 2016, much like these Obama-Trump parts of the state did, was the Fox Valley and Green Bay area shifted in that way in 2016, but not so much in this election. So the shifts in the Bow counties, Brown, Outagamie, and Winnebago counties, it was pretty much same as 2020. Trump carried all three counties, but the shifts from 2020 to 2024 were maybe by like 1% in these counties. Outagamie was, a 10-point margin both in 2020 and 2024. I think this is actually should be a point of pride for Democrats in the Fox Valley and Green Bay, because they held serve in a red wave election. Instead of seeing this shift continue towards Republicans in those regions, they kind of, the shift was not the same. And I think, in places like Appleton, Green Bay, Oshkosh, Neenah, Menasha, you saw some continued shifts towards Democrats. Now, it wasn't obviously enough to make a difference in the statewide race, but I do think, as much as the western part of the state, northern part of the state continued to become redder and redder, I do think it's interesting that the Fox Valley that shift stopped there. And I think if you look ahead to what a path forward for Democrats winning statewide elections are, I think you have to put a little bit higher of a priority on turning out some more of those votes, shifting more of those votes in the Fox Valley and Green Bay. We also saw two of the closest assembly races there were also in the Fox Valley and Green Bay too, decided by a combined total of like less than 500 votes. So there's room there too.
Dan Shafer is the political editor for Civic Media and the author of The Recombobulation Area. Subscribe. It's fantastic. Thank you, Dan. We'll see you Friday.
Thank you so much. Be well.
News is coming up next. When we return, Dr. Kristin Lyerly will be here. Please stay with us. You are listening to Matenaer On Air, coming to you across the vast, statewide, nationwide, potentially global Civic Media Radio Network.
Someone you leave behind, I'll break your heart so you don't break mine. Before I love you, na na na, I'm gonna leave you.
Good morning. Welcome to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calvin Butenhoff, coming to you live from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us. You can call, you can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that Putz de Leon continues to actively ruin. Very excited to have our guest here, our friend, and our fountain of positivity.
Yes.
Dr. Kristin Lyerly is here. Good morning. How are you?
Hey guys, I'm okay. We are all gonna be okay.
Thank you
it
for
sure
that.
feels heavy.
It does feel heavy.
I've never heard someone say they're okay in a more positive way ever. Like, even when
sucks.
you're okay, it's still my like I'm amazing right now. That's the level of difference between our wow.
You ran a great race. It did not have the results that we were hoping for, but you're still feeling positive.
So on Wednesday morning at about 2:00 in the morning, I was talking with another one of my women candidates up in Northeast Wisconsin. And I just want to remind you, we had more women running in Northeastern Wisconsin than men. And only one of those women, Chris Elfheim, the amazing Chris Elfheim, is going to be our new state senator from the Appleton area. But all the other women lost. And we started putting our heads together as early as 2 a.m. on Wednesday morning, and there were tears, and there was a lot of frustration, and there was a lot of concern about what lies ahead. And I don't mean to sugarcoat it, like, I'm very concerned about the next few years. But I also know that there are safeguards in place, that this country is stable, it's on the right track. Things can't get too crazy too fast. And the thing that I really believe in is us. By later Wednesday afternoon, more of us had come together to say, we are not just here for this campaign, we are here for our community. And since that time, it hasn't even been a week, we've been building. We already have something cooking in Green Bay on Sunday night. We know that we all as individuals have to be part of the solution. And that's what we're going to do, whether that means investing in the Supreme Court race that's coming up this spring, or getting involved in our local school boards, or whatever it is. It's that community level stuff that is really going to make a difference for all of us right now. And Jane, Greg, Calvin, I'm here for it. I know you are too.
Absolutely. And we were talking about this last week. You know, it's important that people take the time that they need. If you are hurting, you're disappointed, you know, you're feeling afraid, you need to feel those things. And so check out for a little while. Just, you know, shut off and shut down and do what you need to do to take care of yourself. But at some point, you will feel better. And when you feel better, that's the time, like you said, Kristin, to get back into it. Get back in, stay involved in your community. Stay involved with your public schools, your school boards. Everybody should, you know, run for something. If it, right? Are you hearing from other people who are like, you know what? I'm tired of sitting on the sidelines. Now I'm going to try.
I already have heard from 2 women across the state who are looking into running for their school board races. I mean,
Great.
they've already
Awesome.
started the process. So
That's great.
talk to me, please. If you want motivation, if you want to try to figure out how to plug in, I am here for you. Find me on social media, Kristin for Wisconsin. I'm on all of my stuff is still up and running, and it's not going anywhere. This wasn't about a campaign for me. This really was about building community. So I'm going to be here for the long run. If there's anything that I can do for you all, talking to our listeners as a community, as a neighbor, please reach out. I would love to help you get plugged in.
There are organizations to help people get right to examine, you know, what it takes and what you need to do in order to run, right?
Oh yeah. There's Run for Something, there's Emily's
for
List. I mean, depending on who you are and what your demographic is, there are organizations out there that are there to help you, to teach you. There are webinars and I mean, there's so much information out there, but sometimes it can be hard to take that first step. I'm inviting you to take that first step. And maybe you're not ready to run for something. Maybe you just want to be in the background. Maybe you've never been to a school board meeting and you just want to see what it's like. I watched the Supreme Court hearing yesterday. I don't know if you guys watched it. I have a special interest in that. So
We'll get to that in a
watched
minute, yeah.
yeah, I watched the hearing yesterday. I had never watched anything like that before. It was fascinating. And to know that as a member of the public, you can plug in there. You can plug in your city council meetings. You can plug in your county board meetings. There are all of these different places, depending on where your heart is and where you feel like you can be most effective. There are all these different ways where you can plug in. If you need help figuring out how to do that, again, I'm happy to do that. And I'm sure there are plenty of folks in your community who can help you do that as well. Let's get those conversations started so we can all be part of the solution.
We had Sherry from Horicon, who's just a wonderful, wonderful listener who listens every single day, say something similar. It's like she doesn't want to sit on the sidelines. She doesn't want to. And yeah, if you're not running for office, Kristin, I totally agree. You go to myvote.wi.gov and you can plug in your information. It can tell you who is your alderman, who is your county supervisor, who are your representatives in Madison, and if you don't even know in DC, who knows? But you can find out. You can go to those meetings anytime they hold them. They're public meetings. They're notified. And you can find out who your leaders are. You can talk to your leaders on that local level. And that's how you can even get involved there. And then do what our friend Margie did, which is hold a get-together.
It was a listening session.
It was a listening session.
We had Margie Lowe from Waukesha County, Kristin, a couple of weeks ago came into the show, and she organized a listening session for lawmakers, you know, and the people who are running against them to come and address senior citizens in particular. She's never done anything like this before. She had no organizing manual to start with, so she just she wung it. And,
Yes.
And she checked in. Of course, none of the Republicans who were invited showed up. They all had prior commitments, whatever. But she said, now I'm working on my playbook, and now I'm working on all these contacts that I made, and I have instruction sheets on what to do for next time. And it's those kinds of things, even if it seems insignificant and small, that will eventually make a big difference.
It is exactly that. That's how Renee Peplum got her start. She just ran a beautiful race in Assembly District 1 up in Doran-Kewanee County. She is determined. She's going to be around for the long run. And I was just talking with some folks up in Sturgeon Bay. They started an indivisible chapter about 8 years ago. It wasn't about Democrats and Republicans. It was about, what does this community want to see? What are the pain points for us? And they decided that it was affordable housing. And they started talking about the issues. And that was the thing that brought community members together and started to generate some of the solutions. And actually now they're starting to see some of that work bear fruit. So if you are out there and something is really bugging you, the way to fix it is to bring people together. The way to fix it is to focus on the issues. Don't focus on Democrats and Republicans. Don't make it about Donald Trump. Make it about the change that you can affect in your own community.
Yep.
Because if you have the desire and you've got the people around you, and believe me, even in what you think might be the reddest parts of this state, there are people there who feel the way that you do, who want that change, who are desperate for that change, and they're just looking for that catalyst to get it started.
If you're just joining us, Dr. Kristin Lyerly is our guest. It's been a couple of weeks. So glad to have you back on with us, Dr. Lyerly. And again, you are a fountain of positivity, and it's something that we can all take a little, we all need a little sip of that from time to time.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, we do. Speaking of the Supreme Court hearing yesterday, and you sent me a link, and I watched about 8 minutes of some of the back and forth between the justices and the various lawyers. And I guess, Dr. Lyerly, one thing that really jumped out at me, we're talking about this 1849 abortion ban. And so that's what they're arguing before the Wisconsin Supreme Court, hearing arguments about the future of abortion access in the state. And one thing that just really stood out to me was the completely dispassionate way the lawyer for the Republicans presented his information. And I understand you can't be all emotional. You can't be, you're an attorney. I get that. But it was just so completely dispassionate when one of the justices pointed out some of the ramifications of this. Calvin, let's play clip number 1, please, from Justice Janet Karofsky. The first one. Yep, there should be 2 of them there. One is Justice Karofsky, and the other is Karofsky 2.
It could have been Karofsky all day long. She was brilliant.
She really was brilliant.
Yesterday.
There was such a, when I say tone, I mean that the most respectful way of like, are you serious right now? Are you serious?
Did you find him, Cal, or are they not in there? He's looking. When she pointed out, this is a recent case from a woman in Texas who, at 17 weeks, I believe it was at 17 weeks, when her water broke. You're good to go? All right, let's play that first clip from Justice Karofsky, please.
Brought up the case of Josely Barnica, who went into premature labor at 17 weeks. That is, her water broke. There was a fetal heartbeat, but her fetus was not yet viable. This happened in Texas. She suffered an infection that killed her because medical providers were unwilling or unable to give her the health care that she needed. And all she could do for 40 hours was pray that someone would help her so she could go home to her young child. And she died. That is a scenario that could easily, and perhaps has easily, played out here in Wisconsin under your interpretation of 940.04, couldn't it?
I'm not sure, Justice Karofsky. I'm not a doctor, and I would say that the interpretation of 940.04 that we're positing is the legislature's judgment as to what the law should be. I would like to circle back, though.
Hold on, I'm not done.
Yeah.
I can't think of anyone else other than pregnant people who are denied medical care under the law. Can you?
I certainly think that, for example, the FDA regulates particular types of medical treatment that are provided to people. I don't think that the notion of the government restricting a medical procedure is new, but I also think that there's a long-established history in this state of prohibiting abortion.
The one thing that jumped out to me the most was, I'm not a doctor. No, you're not. And neither are a bunch of the guys who wrote this. They're not doctors either. Dr. Kristin Lyerly is a doctor, and we're going to continue our conversation with her. So stay close. You are listening to Matenaer On Air on the Civic Media Radio Network.
A swing man. She can't hurt. She don't mean no harm. She just don't know what else to do about it. Jane said. Jane said. We need some positive vibes for these rainy days.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and Dr. Slide on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us. Call or text 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream. Thank you for joining us on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Our friend, Dr. Kristin Lyerly, is here, just taking a breath, taking a sip of some positivity, moving forward. And right before we went to the break, we were talking about the Supreme Court, Wisconsin Supreme Court hearing arguments yesterday about the 1849 ban. And listener Jim in Campbellsport asked if you could explain that 1849 law.
I can. In brief, this is a criminal abortion ban that was enacted back in 1849 that made all abortion illegal with the exception of the life of the mother. Now, think back to 1849. There were no pregnancy tests. There were no ultrasounds. Medical care was entirely different. Births were almost entirely managed by midwives.
Yep.
Doctors weren't even credentialed back then. This was right at the dawn of the American Medical Association. So it was an entirely different world back then. It's an old law that was left on the books throughout the whole span of Roe v. Wade. And during that time, a bunch of other laws had been enacted by the Wisconsin legislature to regulate access to abortion care here in Wisconsin. But because that 1849 law, which had been modified a couple times, was not ever taken off the books, when the Dobbs decision happened, there was a lot of confusion about whether it was enforceable. And the district attorneys across the state had to make a decision about whether they would enforce it. There were only 3 counties in Wisconsin that provided standard abortion care. In Madison and Milwaukee, and Dane and Milwaukee, those DAs said that they weren't going to enforce this ban. But in Sheboygan, DA Joel Urmanski said that he would. And so there was a conflict there. So 3 physicians joined the Attorney General's lawsuit to push back on this. And we ended up with, in Dane County Circuit Court, a judgment that said that this ban did not actually apply to abortion, but instead it applied to feticide. And they referenced a case where a case of domestic abuse where a pregnant woman's fetus was murdered during an assault. It was challenged by DA Urmanski, and both parties agreed to take it up to the Wisconsin Supreme Court. And those were the arguments that were heard yesterday.
And that's where we are now.
That's where we are now. Yeah. And the reason that I'm so interested in this is that I was the provider in Sheboygan at the time. So I am the person with standing in this case, and it's my name on the judgment in Dane County Circuit Court. So I'm deeply interested in how this turns out, not just for that reason, but because I have to be able to take care of my patients.
Yes.
And this isn't about abortion. You know, the case that you referenced earlier, the 17-week P-prom, the woman whose water broke early in her pregnancy, and she ended up dying as a result of that. This is happening all over the country. I've been in a situation like that where I've had a patient. I mean, in many cases, I've had patients like that where I've been able to give them the proper medical treatment that saved their lives and allowed them to have pregnancies in the future if that's what they desired. But I've also been in a situation where I wasn't allowed to take care of my patient and she had to get sick before I could take care of her. And it cost her time in the ICU and money and time away from her family. And it was totally unnecessary. That's where we're at right now. We're sacrificing women. We're sacrificing families for politics. And we just can't continue on this course.
They're not doctors. They should not be writing legislation that involves medical things. They're not doctors. That makes me crazy. Calvin, we have another clip from yesterday's hearing in front of the Wisconsin Supreme Court. Can you play that second clip, please?
If she is sexually assaulted and is charged as a third-degree sexual assault, which under the statute, under 940-225 sub 3A, that would be intercourse without consent. Okay. If she became pregnant as a result of the sexual assault, it would be illegal for her to obtain an abortion, correct?
It would be illegal for a doctor to provide an abortion to her in the state of Wisconsin, correct?
And were she to obtain an abortion after quickening, whatever that means, the penalty under 940-04 would be 15 years. It's a Class E felony, correct?
Are you talking about after quickening under 940-04 sub 2 sub A?
Yes.
I believe that's how it's defined, yes.
Okay.
But it would not be, she would not be subject to that penalty.
I understand.
No, the doctor would.
Right. If her assaulter is charged under 940.225 sub 3 sub A, which is a third-degree sexual assault, he would be facing a 10-year maximum imprisonment because that would be a Class G felony. Is that correct?
I'm not sure what the particular penalty associated with that crime
All right,
is.
you can take my word for it. In that case, the penalty for aborting after a sexual assault would be more severe than the penalty for the sexual assault.
Think about that, folks. Just think about that. A woman is raped. She gets pregnant. She gets an abortion. The doctor goes to jail for 15 years. The rapist gets 10.
Might get 10.
Might get 10. Think about that. That's what they're talking about.
You wonder why doctors don't want to practice in states like Alabama and Idaho, why Idaho has lost over a quarter of their OBGYN doctors, why North Dakota is down to, I think, 2 high-risk OBGYN doctors. People want to stay where they are because they have family there. They have history there.
Sure.
But when you can't live there because you can't practice medicine. You can't, it's your livelihood and your family's in danger. And, especially for some of these young people who are wanting to start their own families and they recognize the kind of danger that they're in. This is not the kind of environment that we want to create. This is not how you grow a community and an economy. It is just so contrary to all of the good stuff that we're trying to do.
Dr. Kristin Lyerly has been our guest. If you are thinking about running for office, look for her on social media and just do some Google searches about run for something. Thank you so much for joining us, my friend. I hope we see you soon.
Love you guys. Mwah.
Take care. News is coming up next when we return. Wisconsin's version of Bodie McBoatface. That's all on the way. Keep it here on the Civic Media Radio Network. Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, Calviente on the board, coming to you from our studio at Radio Park here in Racine. You can always join us, call or text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Coming up to round out the show, we will wrap it up with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. I didn't see that coming edition. If you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it into Greg and me like Andrew did for today's Tisbat. Send it to Jane Says, JaneSays, Jane Says at civicmedia.us. Remember back a few years, Greg Bach, 2016?
Yeah.
A proposal by the British government to let the internet suggest a name for a new almost $300 million polar research ship. So they opened it up to the internet. Give us some suggestions for what we should name this very pricey research ship. And of course, there were some more dignified names suggested, like Shackleton, who was a very famous explorer. Endeavour, also named after one of, I think, Shackleton's ships. Falcon.
Ooh.
Falcon is good.
I love that.
That's not what won. Remember what won?
What won, Jane? Refresh our memories.
Bodie McBoatface. James Hand, a PR professional and former BBC employee, became an overnight sensation when he submitted the name Bodie McBoatface after seeing reports of the competition, and then he watched it completely get out of control.
This is not what I expected.
This is not what he expected. The storm that has been created has got its legs of its own, Mr. Hand said, adding he had submitted Bodie McBoatface in another competition just for grins. And he actually, though, voted for the name RRS David Attenborough.
Oh, that would have been
That
awesome.
would have been awesome.
I just, English people. I know English people. I just imagine it's like, what should we name it? Bodie McBoatface.
Bodie McBoatface.
Do what you want.
Right,
I don't care.
I like that.
I'm trying to walk here. You're asking me dumb questions.
Makes me laugh.
Makes me laugh inside. Bodie McBoatface.
Well, Wisconsin, now we have our own.
Wisconsin said, hold my beer.
In Madison, community leaders getting closer to narrowing down potential names for Southside Elementary School. The school, formerly known as Frank Alice, has been using the temporary name Southside since they moved into a new building last year. Then they paused the naming process of the school for about a year while they were looking for a new superintendent. They did get 175 name proposals for the school, a record number for a renaming process, according to Greg Jones. This article, by the way, is out of the Cap Times. They did recently remove proposed names, including Schoolie McSchoolface, Schoolie McSchoolerson, and Big Chungus Elementary. I don't even know what that is.
Big Chungus. I like two things. I like big breakfast, and I love learning. Big Chungus. I don't even know if we can say that on the air, honestly.
It might be a bad word. I don't know. Unfortunately, they removed those names.
Boo.
Disappointing. Under school board policy, district schools must be named after a prominent national or local figure who is deceased. Schools can also be named after a locally significant place, a geographical site, or a broadly respected civic virtue. So the name Lori Mann Carey got the most nominations. A Madison leader who lived on the South Side and died in 2020. She founded the after-school program Mission Point 4. So that's
cool.
pretty cool.
That's
the program offered tutoring for black students at West High. She also helped create the Man Scholars program, providing scholarships and mentorship to Madison students of color.
That's nice. I like that.
Yeah, that's
one.
lovely.
I mean, I'm looking. You can actually go. I put this story in the show links. You can click it. It says 175 suggestions. You can look at all of them, and some of them are very nice. There's Milt McPike. I'm assuming is a person of the community. Wayne Strong. Someone suggested Fred Rogers Elementary, which I thought would have been very
nice.
Very nice. But yeah, then there is Schoolie McSchoolerface. There was one that I saw that just
Schoolie McSchoolerson?
Yeah.
That's my favorite one, actually.
Eddie's house. There's just one
Eddie's
called
house?
Eddie's house. Eddie's house of pancakes and learning.
We were looking around this morning before the show, and I hope this made you laugh half as hard as it made us laugh.
We were laughing so hard. Like I said before earlier in the show, I have not seen Jane laugh that hard in a while. And frankly, we need it. And let's ask you right now. Since Tuesday, it's been tough for people. And we've talked about how tough it is. And we were talking about feeling your feelings, expressing yourself, maybe turning off the social media, getting away at how you've been healing and relaxing and doing your thing. What have you been doing? And also, can you tell us maybe about a big laugh you had where you just felt like it just all came out? You're like, oh man, I needed that. Because honestly, I needed that laugh. I've been laughing here and there since Tuesday, but that was just dumb, fun laughter happening, and that's what we all need.
Laughing till you cry.
Exactly.
Laughing till you cry.
Exactly. I'm gonna pass out.
We were giggling back there like we were 12.
It was wonderful.
Calvin, any thoughts on Schoolie McSchoolerson?
Well, I just wanted to provide some context on Big Chungus.
Oh, good. Oh, excellent.
Our resident young person in Big Chungus, I've heard.
Here to clear it up.
So Big Chungus is it's one of those amorphous internet memes that doesn't totally mean anything, but it originates from this image. I don't know if it actually is from the cartoon or if it's edited, but of Bugs Bunny, really fat. He's like round like a ball, and it just was captioned Big Chungus, and it kind of took off from there, and now kind of just refers to anything that's cute and fat.
That's hilarious. Didn't make the cut.
Big Chungus did not make.
Chungus did not make it.
Where do you go to school? I went to Big Chungus Elementary, and then I made my way to Harvard.
Right, exactly. Where did you go to school?
Schoolie McSchooler face.
If you're just joining us, we are talking about this article in today's Cap Times, and we'll put this in our show notes from Kayla Hoyne about the renaming of an elementary school in Madison, formerly known as Frank Alice. They moved into a new building last year, and so they had to put the naming process on pause while they looked for a new superintendent. And then they asked for proposals from the community, and they got 175 name proposals. But they did remove Schoolie McSchoolface, Schoolie McSchoolerson, and Big Chungus Elementary.
I don't care. I'm not here anymore.
Oh, there you are.
I don't care how many times you say it. Big Chungus.
Big Chungus
will always make me laugh. Glory of the Morning Elementary School. I'm looking through them right now, and there's just
these are actual suggestions.
Yeah, there's a lot of just like people who I imagine are part of the community and important leaders and cool people. But Glory of the Morning Elementary School sounds like, welcome to Glory of the Morning Elementary School, kids. Please rise for the prayer.
Yeah, that little. The other suggestions included Shirley Abramson, whom Governor Evers and State Supreme Court Justice Ann Walsh Bradley nominated in letters to the school district. Abramson, who died in 2020, the first woman to serve on the Wisconsin Supreme Court and the first to lead the court as Chief Justice. She served longer than any justice in Wisconsin history, according to the governor.
Okay, some people just said South Side. Like, come on, man. The one that's hitting my heart the most right now, Chris Farley Elementary.
Oh, that would have been good.
That would have been great.
That would have been great. What's been making you laugh?
What's been making
lately?
you get through it?
What's helping? 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on a live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and what used to be Twitter. Could be just something very, very silly, like Greg and I getting our chuckles out of this.
Absolutely. Oh, never mind. That's just some weirdo. Never mind. I thought someone was texting us. They're just being weird. Sometimes people text us weird things, and I don't say them on the air because we don't need it.
No, we don't need it.
But we're talking about fun stuff here. I mean, yeah, it's pretty innocuous after those three names, though.
It's tough to come close.
Fuel or crutch? I don't know. Calvin, does fuel or crutch mean anything to you? That's one that doesn't make sense.
In resident young person lingo?
It's all one word. Fuel or crutch?
No, that doesn't mean anything to me.
All right, fine.
I'm confused. I said that out of confusion.
Right now, Lori Mann Carey is the name that's gotten the most nominations. Yeah. Again, a Madison leader who died in 2020, founded some after-school programs, helped create scholarships and scholarship programs and mentorship. So that's pretty cool.
Pele Elementary. I don't know. Did
The soccer player?
I guess. I don't know if Pele had any sort of. And then someone actually suggested Otis Redding Elementary because he died in Madison.
Yeah, no.
No, we don't need that.
No, not so
I love
much.
Otis Redding as much as the next person. That just seems very weird. Andrew from Maine says, other people text you weird things, but that's my job.
Oh, Andrew, there's enough weirdness out there to go around.
Trust me, we love your weirdness.
Yes,
we
absolutely.
adore your weirdness.
And we greatly appreciate it. Andrew, on the live stream, the Elementary School of Recombobulation.
Damn
Maybe
it.
the next time in Milwaukee, if we need to rename a school,
There
we
you
could
go.
we could, promote that for Dan Shafer.
What would you do, Jane, if they said, Jane, I just want to let you know, the school is going to be named after you. It's going to be called Matenaer School of whatever.
Laughs?
Well, no, like Matenaer School of Radio Broadcast. We're going to teach people how to be in radio, and we're going to name the school after you.
We'd have to have a long sit down about that. A real long sit down.
Someone texted in, Chris Farley School needs to be by a river. And if you get
yes. The Chris Farley School located down by the river.
Yep.
Calvin.
Absolutely.
This isn't totally related to this school or funny, but it's more of a feel good. I saw a CBS News story from a few weeks ago that a Missouri elementary school voted to name their elementary school building after their beloved custodian that all the children love.
Oh,
see,
that's awesome. Do you know what his name was? Does it include what his name
Big
is?
Chungus.
It is. No, I'm trying to find it in the article. It is a woman named Claudine Wilson. So now it will be Claudine Wilson Elementary.
That's fantastic. It really is. That's fantastic. So they named the school after the favorite beloved janitor.
Love that.
I do too.
Someone listening to us on WGBW said Big Chungus Elementary almost made me spit out my lunch. Well, at least we've accomplished one thing today.
What was our goal?
We had one goal when we created this show, to make people spit out their lunch because we're that funny.
It's always an extra plus.
Yeah, exactly.
A little spit take or whatever. We'll take all of it.
A spit take is one of the most. A spit take and a snort. When you're doing comedy, when you get a spit take or a snort, you know you've nailed it.
Snort is high praise.
Oh my God. Are you like it? Oh my gosh. Yes. You just can't. Oh, it makes you feel so. I've seen comedians stop their sets because they hear a snort and they're like,
they just want to bask in the
they
snort.
went, look, got a snort. That's mine. That's all mine.
Basking in the snort. It's what we do.
Big Chungus.
And you can always join us.
Yes, please.
At 855-752-4842. Leave a comment on the live stream. Send us strange things. We love them. You can send them to Jane Says, JANESAYS. Jane Says at civicmedia.us. One break to go. We're going to wrap it up with This Shouldn't Be a Thing. I didn't see that coming edition. That's on the way. So keep it here on the Civic Media Radio Network.
Well, at this here school, all you learn to do is rock. Well, they rock on the blackboard, they rock on the desk. The rocking on work is the what they love the best. The school of rock and roll session all year long. Well, the school of rock and roll is where I long to go.
Good morning. Welcome back to Matenaer On Air. Jane Matenaer, Greg Bach, and the Board Lord coming to you from our studio at Radio Park in Racine. You can always join us. You can call. You can text. The number is the same, 855-752-4842. Leave a comment if you're watching on the live stream on Facebook, YouTube, and the platform that used to be Twitter. Todd Alba, it's Tuesday. He will be right after us, after the noon news, from noon to 2 p.m. And because it's Tuesday, that means Tuesday Tangents with Luke Mathers.
Ooh.
That's always a lot of fun. Make sure you join him and see what is annoying Mr. Mathers today.
What's grinding his gears?
What's grinding his gears? That will be with Todd Alba after the noon news. Right now, though, it's 11:52. That means it is time for...
This shouldn't be a thing.
And again, if you ever have a thing you think should not be, send it in to Greg and me at Jane Says at civicmedia.us, JANESAYS at civicmedia.us. Our friend Andrew from Maine sent this in. Headline reads, ambulance hits Oregon bicyclist, rushes him to hospital, then sticks him with an $1,800 bill.
We're coming to America. That just sounds like the most American thing ever.
71-year-old William Hesh was riding his bicycle. When he got hit by an ambulance, it turned into him.
So the ambulance's fault.
It is the ambulance's fault. Fractured his nose, left him with scrapes and other injuries all across his body. He's filed an almost $1 million lawsuit against the ambulance provider after it scooped him up, took him to the hospital, and then billed him.
Yeah. Sounds like the most American thing ever.
Mr. Hesh was billed $1,862 for the ambulance ride. That's only among the $47,000 in medical expenses he's already racked up so far, and another $50,000 worth of medical costs he expects down the road. The Columbia River Fire and Rescue declined to comment.
Shocking.
Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company also did not respond to a request for a comment. This is from OregonLive.com. According to the lawsuit, Mr. Hesh was pedaling through a small town in October of 2022. He and the ambulance were going the same direction on a street that's a mixture of homes and businesses. The ambulance turned to make a right turn onto another street and crashed into Mr. Hesh, destroying his bicycle. And again, which then the ambulance scooped him up after they hit him, took him to the hospital, and then billed him for the ride.
Hey folks, if you get hit by an ambulance, make sure before they take you to the hospital that you got full coverage and the hospital you're going to is in network.
Well, but according to the police reports, the driver who struck Mr. Hesh, they were only going between 2 and 10 miles an hour. So it's not like they were racing to an emergency.
No.
They just weren't paying attention.
They weren't paying attention. But 10 miles an hour in a car can do some serious damage to
on
someone
a
bike or on foot. And I'm just hoping that in this story, that's part of like the procedure where you have to in order to get your in order to get my insurance money, I have to sue you, Aunt Stephanie. That's the story. But still,
I don't know how you can even remotely justify charging him for this ride.
No, well,
he wouldn't have needed the ride if you hadn't hit him.
Your insurance probably going to go up because of this, and it would the idea that everything in their business will be raise their premiums, their liability, all that stuff because you hit them. Give the guy a free ride at least.
Absolutely.
So
we will try and keep you informed on how this lawsuit goes.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
I smell a settlement.
I think you're absolutely right. And thank you again to Andrew from Maine for sending that in. That wraps up today's episode of
This Shouldn't Be a Thing.
Oh, man. Didn't see that coming edition. On the way for tomorrow, Angela Lang is going to be here from Block.
Yes, Black leaders organizing our communities. Cannot wait to hear from her. She's got a lot of thoughts on what happened in the race, a lot of thoughts on what's been, and probably a good a place to listen to someone what to do to decompress after something like this as well.
Definitely. Brittany Merlot will be here with a little weather and wine at 11:21. Public service announcement with Dr. Laura Hanks. And again, we will wrap it up just like we did today with what we are calling Tisbet for short. This shouldn't be a thing. A couple of questions we wanted to resolve before we head over to the news. A listener had asked how long Eric Hovde has to ask for a recount. We're seeing two different dates. One was November 20th, one was November 22nd.
Yeah.
So we know he does still have a little of time if he wants to challenge those results. But again, it's my understanding that because of the closeness of the race, if he wants a recount, he's going to have to pay for it himself.
And now I'm seeing another story no later than Saturday the 23rd. So
which is it?
I know. Make it make sense, people.
Well,
so basically he has until the end of next week.
End of next week.
Yeah.
The great Hovdini. No one has seen him. We'll keep an eye out for him. I hope you will too. Thank you, Greg and Calvin and all of our engineers and everyone across Civic Media. Without you, absolutely nothing works. And thank you most of all for calling and for texting and for listening. It absolutely means the world. I hope you find some joy today, even if it's just a little bit or a snort, and you have the chance to share it. News is next. Keep it here on the Civic Media Radio Network. We'll see you tomorrow.
Yes,